Exciting news, this week I'm going to knit the Sophie Hood. So this pattern's from Petite Knit. I did the Sophie Scarf a few weeks ago and absolutely loved it, so I thought I should move on to the hood and see if I enjoy that one just as much. So the Sophie Hood has a really similar construction to the Sophie Scarf, but obviously it's a lot bigger and it incorporates a hood as well, which I think is a really fun idea for winter time. So just like with the Sophie Scarf, I'm going to time every step of the way, so that way we'll know how long it takes. So if you're wanting to make one too, you'll have a bit of an idea of how long it might take you. At the end, I'll do a little pattern review, let you know my thoughts about it and how similar mine ended up in terms of size to what it says in the pattern. I've got the pattern, I've got my knitting needles, but I can't decide which color I want to use for my yarn. So for both of them, it would be a strand of merino with a strand of mohair, and I've got a beautiful purple color, but I've also got a really nice red, and I'm struggling to decide which one I prefer. So I did a little post over on my TikTok and Instagram to see if you folks could help me choose between the two colors. Because I was struggling. So let's go check what the results of that are, and then I can get to making. And pretty much everyone said the purple. I'm really happy with that because I think that was secretly always my favorite. It just really appealed to me, the idea of having a cute little purple hood. I like that it's a little bit darker in tone too. The red is really nice, but it's just a little bit more bold, I think. So yeah, purple is the way to go. So I was looking at my swatch and I used 5mm needles for this one, because that's what the pattern says. But I think for mine, because the mohair is a little bit fuzzy, I feel like it adds a bit more bulk to your yarn. So because this is a 2-ply and an 8-ply, it is kind of the equivalent of a 10-ply, but I often feel like I prefer to use a slightly larger needle when I'm using mohair, or like something really fuzzy like an alpaca, because I think, yeah, the fuzziness in it just bulks up a little bit better, and I kind of like giving the knit a little bit of room to breathe with that fuzziness, if that makes sense. It might not. So I did another sample with 5.5mm needles, and I feel like the 5.5mm needles give a really nice result, so I'm happy with that. So I think I'll use those. So now I'm just going to have a quick look at how this gauge compares to the pattern's gauge to see if I'm vaguely close. So the gauge in the pattern is 17 stitches equals 10 centimeters or 4 inches, and that's with the 5mm needles. So my gauge is actually a little bit bigger. 10 stitches for me would actually equal 11 centimeters. So it's 10% over, which I'm okay with. I think I'd like to keep it with that because the hood in the pattern is 24 centimeters deep for all the sizes, regardless of whether you do the small, medium or large. And I think I might just like to make mine a little bit deeper. So if my gauge continues to be about 10% bigger than the pattern, it means that that 24 centimeters at the hood portion will probably be more like 26.5-ish, which might just be enough to make it deep enough. But I also might still add some stitches. I don't know. We're going to have to see that bit when we get to it. Also with the pattern, if you're coming from making the Sophie Scarf, it is a lot more detailed, especially because the shaping of the hood part is going to require, you know, a lot more work than just the Sophie Scarf, which was just increasing and then decreasing on the other side. But that'll be good. It looks really detailed. Also, again, there's videos on the website. Just click on the videos tab and she has videos for how to start, how to do the I-cord bits, and I think all the hood shaping stuff there would be videos for as well. So in terms of the sizing, I think I'm actually just going to make the small one because I'm pretty sure that's all I have yarn for. So I've only got 400 meters of this one. These ones I think I've got 420 meters of. For example, in the pattern, the 10-ply yarn that has an equivalent sort of meterage, so where 50 grams is 100 meters, just the same as this one, they suggest using 200 grams, so essentially 400 meters of yarn to make the small size. So I'm thinking definitely stick to the small size, especially because my gauge is a bit bigger. We might be running into a situation where I'm running out of yarn again in this one, just like I did in the Sophie Scarf. And also with the Sophie Scarf, it's really easy to stop at the midway point when you're halfway through your yarn, when you weigh it, and then do your decreases so you have enough yarn to get down the other side. But with the hood, I imagine it's going to be a lot different because you have to do the shaping. It's not like you can get to a midway point of using your yarn up and then decide to go down the other side. You'd have to have sort of pre-planned when to start shaping the hood, but that is something for down the track. So I'm just going to start. I'm going to time every step of the way, so you know how long it takes. I'll check back in every hour and show you my progress, see how many rows we've done. So I'm going to use my 5.5mm needles. I'm going to use one strand of my mohair, one strand of my merino, and hopefully it's going to be great. Exciting news, I finished the first hour of knitting and I think it's looking really good. I feel like it's working up really quick, just like with the Sophie Scarf. It feels like it goes really fast at the start because the rows are so short, but also I think the 10 ply equivalent yarn and the 5.5mm needles are making it feel really quick too, which is fun. I feel like it's been a really fun hour of knitting so far. You might notice that my needles are really short. I took the cable off because it was irritating and I didn't need it. I find when I'm turning my work so frequently, like I was down here, the cable was just getting in the way. So I took that off for now. I also quite like working on really short needles. I feel like they fit well with the way I like to knit, but this is definitely getting to a scary point now where I'm pretty sure these stitches will start falling off if I'm not careful. So I'm actually going to pop the cable back on before there's a horrible accident. So in the first hour I did 66 rows and yeah, it's going great. I've been counting my rows just like I did with the Sophie Scarf. So I've got a pen and paper and I just do little check marks. So every 2 rows I stop and I do 2 check marks on the paper. I find this is a good system for me because I get into a rhythm of knitting 1 row forward, 1 row back, and then doing my marks, and then I feel like I'm never going to get lost knowing whether I'm up to an increase or not. Also, in terms of keeping track of my rows and when I'm going to do increases, I find it's really helpful to keep an eye on where my tail is. So I did a long tail cast on, so my tail is always on the right side of this triangle when I'm about to knit a odd number row, which is technically the wrong side row. So rows 1, 3, 5, etc. And they're the rows that you would be doing the increases. So I'm going to jump into the second hour of knitting. I think I'm going to hop on the couch, watch some YouTubes. My every week have to watch Jenna Phipps. I love seeing them build their house. It's looking so good. And I also saw there's a new Kathleen Illustrated, so I'm going to watch those. That should take me up to the next hour of knitting, and then I'll come back with another update. So it's the next day. I finished up last night after doing the second hour of knitting, and this is where it's at. So I'm on row 112. I'm having such a fun time. I'm definitely getting Sophie Scarf deja vu because the method is essentially the same at this point, and it will be until I get up to the hood, which is where the exciting stuff will happen. But so far I'm having a great time. I'm really enjoying the yarn. It feels really nice to work with. Also, I'm enjoying my new knitting needles. I got these ones. They're an interchangeable set from Knit Pro. They're the Symphony wooden ones. They look so pretty and they feel really nice and smooth and soft, and I'm absolutely loving using them. So yeah, overall, I'm having a great time. So I'm going to jump back in and start hour 3 of knitting. It's pretty much the same thing until I get to the hood, so I'll come back with updates every hour on my progress and we can see how it's growing. This is after the 3rd hour of knitting. I did an extra 34 rows, which takes the total to 142. And it's looking great. I think I've only got another hour to knit tonight, so I'll come back in the morning with an update. So I finished up another hour last night, so that's 2 for yesterday and 4 in total, and we are at this point. I feel like it's looking really long and I'm really loving how it's looking. The process of making it is so fun. I'm finding it really relaxing. I think by the time I get to the shaping of the hood, it'll be nice to have a little bit of a change and do some different stitches, but for now, I'm just really enjoying the repetitive nature of making it. I'm up to row 172. So I reckon we've got at least another couple hours before I get to the hood shaping. So I'm going to jump into it today and see where I can get up to. It's the next day and I did 2 hours of knitting on day 3. So that means I've done 6 in total, and this is where we're at. So this is at row 220. I'm super impressed with how it's looking. The color is coming out amazingly, and I feel like it's getting to a length where it's starting to feel like a hood and a scarf, and I love that. So in the pattern, you're supposed to stop and start shaping the hood when you reach a certain width at the top. They also give you length recommendations for how long it should be depending on whether you've made the small, medium or large. So at the moment I've reached the width at the top where I'm supposed to start shaping the hood, but I haven't reached the length yet. I'm about 8 centimeters short. And even though I'm making the small, I want to make sure it's not too small because I want to be able to wrap it from the front around to the back and to the front again where it's got a little bit more length. And this has probably happened because everyone knits a little bit differently, so your gauge isn't always going to be perfect. When I did my gauge swatch, I was about 10% wider than what the pattern recommended. So it makes sense my measurements are a little bit off now, but I think it's actually going to work out for the best, because if I'm adding a couple more rounds of the repeat to get my length of the scarf up, it's also going to increase the width of the scarf at the top where I'm going to be shaping the hood. So this will make the hood a little bit deeper, which will help it sit more forward, which is what I wanted to begin with. I'm excited to get knitting again. I'm going to jump in and I'll come back when it's time to start shaping the hood. I ended up doing 16 more rows. I probably would have liked to have gone a little bit longer just to get the length up a little bit more. In hindsight, I probably should have got enough wool to make the medium size, but I've stopped at this point because I am getting scared about this yarn situation. So the pattern for the hood shaping seems pretty fun. You have to transfer the I-cord stitches off onto a little lifeline piece of yarn or a stitch holder or something like that, because you're going to shape the hood with decreases on this side and then straight away do the hood section on the other side doing increases, and then you'll join back on these I-cord stitches where it would sit at the nape of the neck, which is fun. So I'm just going to use a little bit of cotton because I don't have any stitch holders. I'm going to transfer my I-cord stitches to this, tie it off so they're nice and secure and they won't unravel anywhere. And then I'm going to keep going with the hood. There's a big chunk I've got to do, so that'll probably take a couple hours anyway. And then I'll get to the decreases at the top section of the hood. So yay, I'm excited. We're at the hood section. So I just finished hour 7. It's this long. I'm on row 240. I did 6 rows in the hood section. This bit's been quite fun. It's weird having the I-cord edging on one end and not the other, just because I got so used to it being on both sides for the scarf. So I'll see how much I can get done tonight, and yeah, it's going good though. Alrighty, it's the next day again. I feel like this is taking a long time. I'm only doing 2 hours a day at the moment. And yeah, it's taking a while. I'm doing daily updates on TikTok and Instagram, and I feel like they might be getting a bit boring because 2 hours sometimes doesn't result in that much progress. But having said that, I feel like yesterday was quite a fun day because I started on the hood section. So this is after 8 hours of knitting. I've done 264 rows, and yeah, the hood section's coming along really well. I've got a couple more rows to do, and then I'll start the decreases on the hood to get the curved top of the hood shape. The amount of mohair I have left in this ball is troubling me a little bit. I've got a whole nother ball for the other side, but I need to make sure I get to the halfway point only using this one and only using 100 grams out of this 200 gram ball. So I had slightly more meterage in the mohair to begin with. So actually I think my main worry is this merino now. But I'll see how I go. Hopefully it's enough to get through to the halfway point. Otherwise I'm gonna have to frog back to before I split for the hood section or buy some more yarn. So I don't know, but I'm having a really fun time making this one. It is a lot bigger project than the Sophie scarf, but I feel like that's a good thing because that was such a quick project. This feels a little bit more meaty, like you've got a good week's worth of fun out of making this one. I just finished another hour, so this is the 9-hour mark. I'm on row 294, I think, and the hood shaping's going really well. I like how the decreases are forming. I feel like it's creating a really nice curve, which is great. I think I'm 13 rows away from finishing this side of the hood, so I'll pop back then and show you what it's like at the halfway point, and we'll get a halfway mark time check too, which will be fun. And I just weighed my yarn. The mohair is going to last to the midway point, which is perfect, but my merino, I'm already at 100 grams. So this was a 200 gram ball, so I'm halfway through this, so that means I'll probably run out about, I don't know, that much before the end of the scarf, which isn't ideal, but I figure I'm really enjoying the length of the scarf and the width of the hood as it is, so I don't really want to go back and adjust it just so I can have enough yarn. So I'm actually just going to buy another ball of this. It's only $16 and I'll use it for another project as well. So I think this is a really good option. So I'm going to jump back in, I'll finish these last 13 rows and then I'll come back and show you it at the halfway point. Exciting news, I am at the halfway point of the hooded scarf and it's looking amazing. So this is after 9 hours and 35 minutes of knitting, and I'm really happy with how the hood sections turned out. If I had known that I was going to be buying another ball of this merino anyway, because I already had more of this mohair to begin with, I kind of wish I had done some more rows down in the body of the scarf. That way the scarf would have been a bit longer and the hood would have been a little bit wider as well, which I think would have been better for the fit. But I didn't do this, so as a little workaround, I actually added in 4 rows extra in this section here. I made sure I spread them out evenly over the decrease rows so that curve is really nicely maintained, which I think is really important for the hooded shape. But I think it was important to get a little bit more length in the hood. So I'm happy that I did that. So now I just need to do the other half exactly the same way as I did this one, but in reverse. So when I did decreases on this one, I'll do increases on the other side. And when I did increases, I would do decreases. So it's quite fun pattern how it's written in that way. And I took really good notes of any changes I made to the pattern as well, so I can duplicate that on the other side and make sure it's all perfectly correct. So I'm gonna jump into this. I'll be much quicker with my updates on this one, so I'll just show you what it's looking like every hour, and then we can do a little pattern review at the end. All right, so it's been 18 hours and 55 minutes all up, and I've finished all the knitting of my scarf. All I have left to do now is sew up the back section of the hood. So I'm going to stitch this up now. Petite Knit also have a video on their website showing you how to do the mattress stitch to stitch it up. So if you don't know that, you can have a look at the video. I'm going to do it with a strand of the merino and the mohair, just so it's consistent with the rest of the scarf. First up, I really loved it. I had a really fun time making it. I feel like that's not a surprise to me because I really enjoyed making the Sophie scarves. I felt like this was very similar to that, but on a larger scale and with the added interest of doing all the hood shaping, which I did find to be really fun. Found the way the pattern was written was really clear. It had a lot more detail than the Sophie scarf did, because it obviously has a lot more detail in the pattern in terms of shaping the hood, and also there is some differences between the small, medium and large sizes for making this one too. So there's additional information regarding that. So this scarf ended up taking 19 hours to make. I found the make of it really fun. I feel like the repetitive nature of doing the scarf length sections of it was really nice. It was good to do while listening to things or just having a sit and a think. But then when it got to the hood shaping, there was a little bit more to pay attention to and a little bit more to do. And I think by the time you got to that section, you were kind of wanting that in this pattern. So I feel like the timing of it worked out well. I was really happy with my yarn choice. I think doing a combination of the 8-ply merino and the 2-ply mohair was perfect because it ended up with a really nice warm and fuzzy fabric, but by combining the two, it's just added a little bit more depth to the color and to the tone of it, and I think that's worked really nicely. I was really happy I sized my needles up to the 5.5 because I think it made the fabric a little bit more drapey, and I think I just prefer a slightly more relaxed fabric. And if I'd used the 5mm needles, it just would have been a little bit tighter. So for my scarf, I worked on the small size because I didn't have much of this yarn. I ended up buying another ball of this to finish it off, but I'd been kind of hoping I could have got it done with the single ball, but alas, I did not. Anyway, so what happened is I worked to the small size. I changed my needles to the 5.5mm, which increased my gauge a little bit. So I was always going to use a little bit more yarn, but it also meant that my sizing ended up a little bit different. So compared to the pattern, my gauge ended up being about 10% wider, but it also ended up a little bit shorter. And I would just probably put that down to the way I knit. Because my gauge was a little bit wider, it meant that I could make the hood section a little bit deeper, which is what I wanted. So my hood ended up being 26 centimeters, and I think in the pattern it said it was 24 centimeters. And the length of it is 103 centimeters. Chewy loves this scarf. Honestly, anytime I've been putting it down to obviously do other things in my life, he will come and sit on it and he just refuses to give it up. I don't know why. Maybe he likes the feel of the mohair and it feels all nice and friendly like a little buddy, but yeah, he absolutely loves it. My other cat Ren loves it too, but they tend to take turns on it, and yeah, right now is Chewy's turn. And in the pattern it says for the small size, the length from the hood to the tip will be approximately 102 centimeters. So it's pretty close in length to what the small in the pattern is. However, to get to this length, I ended up actually putting in some additional rows, some of them before I split the hood and then some of them after. So before I split for the hood, I think I put in another 12 rows. And then after I split for the hood, I did an additional 4 rows on each side of the hood. So this helped make it a little bit longer because, yeah, obviously I was knitting in a way that would make it shorter than what the pattern was suggesting. I don't know, we all knit different, and I think, yeah, you've just got to accommodate for that when you're working on a pattern. You might just need to make some adjustments based on your particular knitting style. And in terms of how much yarn I used, so for my mohair, I used the full other ball of this, which was 25 grams, and then of this one, I've got only 3 grams left. So I was really pretty close with this one. So all up, I used 47 grams of the mohair, and I used a whole 200 gram ball of the merino, and I also used another 12 grams of this ball, so 212 grams of merino all up to get to this size. If I had my time again, and if I knew I was going to be buying another ball of this, I probably would have done my length a little bit longer before I split for the hood, just enough so I wouldn't run out of the mohair as well. But I think adding the length in before I split for the hood would have been better. But overall, I'm really happy with the size. I don't think I would have wanted a hooded scarf with a really long scarf. I feel like that just would have been a bit too heavy to have it all sitting on your shoulders. I really enjoyed making this project. I thought it was super fun. I really liked the pattern. It was all really clear. And best of all, I really love how the project turned out. I think it's absolutely perfect. I do love the idea of having a hooded scarf for winter time, and I think it'll be really fun. And that's the end of the video. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.